Yep. Okay. Good evening, everyone. To begin with, I'd like to propose having a minute's silence in memory of Doreen Lofthouse of Fisherman's Friends, who sadly passed away recently. I'd also like us to pause in memory of His Royal Highness Prince Philip, who also sadly passed away last week. Please join me in a minute's silence. Okay, thank you very much. Councillor Vincent, you've got your hand up.
Yes, thank you, Chair. I just wanted to explain my video is currently off as I'm having network issues at my home, and the device that I'm on has informed me that I risk disconnecting if I keep the video on. So I've disconnected the video. I am still present and paying attention. I just wanted to explain why the video wasn't on.
Okay, thank you for that. First of all, do members have any declarations of interest to declare? No. Right, well, we're going to skip the confirmation of the minutes of the licensing committee because I know it was on the agenda, but it falls outside our remit. So before we turn on to this evening's business, just got a couple of housekeeping reminders. The meeting is live streaming, and the committee may require any person attending the hearing who, in our opinion, is behaving in a disruptive manner to be muted, and may refuse to permit that person to re-engage with the virtual meeting. So this evening's business is an application for a new premises licence relating to Wyreside Hall, Wagon Lane, Dolphin Home. I'd like to introduce the members of the subcommittee. If you could please physically raise your hands to identify yourself to other parties. I'm Peter Cartridge. I'm the chair for this evening's meeting. We've also got Councillor Matthew Vincent, who has just spoken before. We've got Councillor Hugh Williams. Do you want to put up your hand, Hugh? Second, I'd like to introduce the officers present. If you could raise your hands to identify yourself to other parties. We've got Nikki Barrett, who's our licensing officer. And we've got Mary Grimshaw, our solicitor for our legal team. We've also got Marianne Unwin and Duncan Jarrett from Democratic Services. And third, can the applicant on behalf of Wyresdale Leisure Limited identify themselves?
Wyreside, I have to say.
It's
Wyreside, not Wyresdale.
Sorry about that.
Yeah.
It's all right. My name's Stephen Hind.
Okay.
It's Rosemary Hudson.
Thank you. Okay. Nikki, are there any additional relevant others? And is everyone here so we can go ahead? Oh, just need to unmute yourself.
Sorry, thank you, Chair. Unfortunately, none of the objectors or the supporters, aside from Mr. Hind, are present this evening. We did have confirmation from Mr. Birchall that he intended to join us, but hasn't done yet. So the committee must firstly consider, in accordance with Regulation 20 of the hearings regs, if in the absence of the representatives, you wish to continue with tonight's hearing and determine the matter based on their written representations, or whether you consider it necessary in the public interest to adjourn the hearing to a future date. Thank you.
Okay, I'm happy to proceed. Councillor Williams?
Yeah, I'm happy to proceed.
Okay, Councillor Vincent?
Yeah, also happy to proceed.
Excellent. Okay. Also, you'd be aware it's not possible to submit documents during the virtual hearing. If you've got any additional documentary evidence to be considered with the consent of all parties, the hearing must be adjourned to a future date to allow submission and distribution of the material. So over to our licensing officer, Nikki Barrett, to introduce the report.
Thank you, Chair. This item concerns an application from Wyre Leisure Limited for a new premise licence for Wyre Hall, Wagon Road in Dolphin Home. The applicant is seeking permission to sell alcohol for consumption on and off the premises and provide live and recorded music, both indoors and outdoors, between 7 AM and 1:30 each day of the week. Although the application does state that outside live music would cease by 11 o'clock, and so the condition replicating that will appear on any licence granted. The application also provides for 30 minutes drinking up time, and so the venue will be closed to the public by 2 AM. The premises itself is a Grade 2 listed building in extensive grounds and has been restored and refurbished to create the restaurant and function rooms, although work is still ongoing to finish all the leisure facilities planned for the site. The public consultation required under the Licensing Act attracted 9 representations objecting to the application and 6 supporting it, which are all found in the appendices to the report. Many of the objectors have raised concerns that involve planning issues, and they were advised that they need to contact the planning department directly about those matters. Subcommittee members, you will be aware that licensing controls should not be used to duplicate any other regulatory regime. Section 7 of our current licensing policy indicates that the licensing authority will not impose conditions that mirror a legal duty placed on operators under other legislation, and goes on to say that the council is of the view that the licensing authority is not bound by decisions made by the planning authority and vice versa. The two authorities consider different, albeit related matters, but the only relevant considerations for the licensing authority when determining applications are the 4 licensing objectives. Aside from the planning concerns, many of the objectors are concerned about the impact of the long hours sought by the applicant and the potential nuisance that would arise from that, and in particular from outdoor entertainment. Environmental Health had prolonged discussions with the applicant throughout the consultation period. They initially objected to the application, but were able to agree on a number of additional conditions that address their concerns about public nuisance arising from activities on the site. These conditions are on pages 53 and 54 of your bundle. The applicant also submitted a revised plan during the consultation period, which is Plan B on page 34 of your bundle. This significantly reduced the footprint of the licensed area that was initially sought to further mitigate the impact of licensable activities. The original plan with the initial footprint is now referenced Plan C and is on page 35. Police have also agreed a number of additional conditions on pages 55 and 56 of your bundle. All of these extra conditions would be included on any licence granted by members this evening. Invitations were sent to the applicant and all the representatives on the 31st of March. The letter included reference to Regulation 8(1)A of the hearing regs, which require any party to give notice of their intention to attend or be represented. But as members are aware, we haven't got any of the representatives present. Once you've heard the submissions this evening and taken into account the written evidence, you must consider whether granting the application would be likely to undermine one or more of the licensing objectives. If you're satisfied that the objectives would not be undermined, you should grant the application as amended following consultation with the responsible authorities. If, however, you are concerned that the objectives would be undermined, you may grant the application in amended terms, which could include imposing additional conditions or permitting different hours, or you may refuse the application in its entirety, but in all cases you should give reasons for the decision. And that's it. Thank you, Chair.
Okay. Now I'm going to ask for each party to make their submission in turn. Each party will be allowed up to 15 minutes. The committee members will have the opportunity to ask any questions after each submission. So please, can the applicant make their submission, please, now? Thank you.
Okay, in 2011, we sought the planning permission to fully refurbish and put the hotel into a 5-star hotel with all the relevant leisure functions. We funded all of this using our own funding, and to date we have had a practice run, if you want to call it that. We've had 10 functions at the hotel. One of them a large outdoor function, and as far as we're aware, we've had no direct or complaints. We've not had any complaints or objections or any notification from Wyre Borough that they've had any issues. So the representations opposing the license, there's been 10 trial runs to effectively see whether there was any problems with our application. In our supporting documents, we've provided quite an extensive set of documents showing the distances and effectively the the drop in dB levels due to the extensive distances the neighbouring properties. Wyreside Hall sits on the top of an elevated platform, which is how the Victorians and people used to like to sit their properties, and as such, in that elevated position, I think on pages 3 and 4 of our submission, we've shown the differences in elevations of the properties. So to give an idea, Wyreside Hall sits, depending on where you actually take it on the hall, at an elevation of 87 and 89 metres. The properties in Lower Dolphinholme, where most of the opposing residents live, are at an elevation of 70 metres, some 17 metres below. And the property across the river is at 64 metres. Again, a significant drop. What we've done on pages 5 and 6 is have a look, not of what the noise or sound levels would be inside the building. We've concentrated on showing if we were doing an outdoor function in free air with a 90 dB output from a particular speaker, what the voltage drop would, what the effectively dB loss would be over the distances. And that's where you can see, due to where Wyreside Hall sits, the natural dB loss over the distances to the nearby properties is quite significant, and in most cases, unless we had a loud rock concert on there, would effectively have disappeared to a whisper. That's if there was no elevations or there wasn't any natural obstacles in the way. So to further mitigate it, we took a series of pictures to show on pages 17, 18, 19 and 20, which are the, page 17 is the rear entrance to Wyreside, and shows directly opposite a number of trees. Page 18 shows the trees and the lane going towards Lower Dolphinholme. Page 20 shows an extensive brick wall. The Wyreside cottage was the former residence and was part of the Wyreside estate in the 1800s, and had an extensive wall garden around it. Effectively, that wall is 12 foot high and sits on top of a 6 foot banking. Page 20 then shows the distance from the road to the house at the back. Again, that's some significant way up the road, actually being shielded by the effectively 18-foot barrier. So I think that's why we were concerned or didn't understand the noise complaints or noise problems possibly emanating from Wyreside Cottage. And then if we moved on to pages 13, 14, 15 and 16, they're the next nearest properties at Belvedere. Again, you can see Belvedere properties sit behind a natural hill, and there's a picture from the road that just shows the top of the Belvedere complexes. And page 16 actually shows the view back towards the hall, and you can't actually see the hall in the distance because obviously it's that far away and is protected by trees. As I said on the previous, it's some 17.
It's frozen.
Yeah, I think I would recommend maybe them turning their camera off.
Yeah. Would you be able to turn your camera off, please? And then hopefully they'll have enough bandwidth to hear you. Duncan, can we just put a pause on the live streaming until they can rejoin?
I don't actually think we can pause live streaming. I think if we stopped it, we'd have to start it again. If they could hear us, would they be able to leave and then join back? That might help out.
Nikki, do you have a telephone number to contact them on or not?
Have they dropped out now? Totally.
No, they're still showing that. Oh, hello. Sorry, we just missed a lot of what you've said because of your connection.
Do you want to go back? Just the point about where you were talking about Belvedere Cottage. Go back to there, please.
Okay, yeah. Well, what we were doing with Belvedere was showing on pages 13, 14, 15 and 16 was that Belvedere, the next nearest properties, is protected by a natural hill and only the rooftops show from the road. And then we had a look at the view back from the road back to Wyreside to the distance, and the distance from Wyreside.
Have they dropped out again?
Yeah, Chair, once they come back, maybe just remind them again to ask them to turn their camera off again, if that's okay.
Will you be able to tell me when they join? Because I've lost my screen this side as well.
They're back on now.
Yeah, they're back on now.
Excellent. Would it be possible if you could turn your camera off? Because each time you put it on, the bandwidth's not wide enough for it to work, so it just crashes.
Okay, we'll try turning it off.
If you turn off your camera, that's great. Thank you.
Oh, okay. So what we were saying already, 13, 14, 15 and 16 was the fact that The Belvedere, which is the next nearest properties, are protected by a natural hill, and only the rooftop of the nearest property pokes out above the hill. Photograph 16 shows the view back to the hall, and due to the distance of the hall and the natural hill, again, you can't see the hall in the distance. What we were showing on pages 5 and 6 were the dB losses over those substantial different distances in free air, but without taking into effect any drop in elevations or natural barriers that are in the way. And then we went on to talk about lower Dalton, the hill as you arrive out of the footpath on page 22, and then looking at the substantial distances and trees. The woods and the green areas are shown on page 3, which again shows that the sound travelling from the hall, it's in an isolated position, but natural barriers and distance protect the nearby properties from any noise issues. And I think that's where we've had the 10 previous functions and we haven't had any direct noise complaints or any complaints via. Where we are having objection, we're concerned about noise. There were other issues that I don't want to go into. I spoke to Nikki about some of them and the personal rhetoric that's been thrown at us, which I do take exception to, because sometimes these platforms do give people the right to have a go at you personally, you know, when all we're trying to do is apply for a license and undertake a business. So I think if we just keep to what we're here today to talk about, which is fulfilling the requirements for the licensing and not get drawn into the other issues that the opposers have raised. I think really that sums up where we are in dealing with things. But I think Nikki and we spent time with the police in dealing with the conditions that the police would like to put on there. I spent a lot of time with Nick Clayton in arriving at the conditions. We went backwards and forwards a number of times to get the conditions into an acceptable format for both parties. So we've done everything that we can. And really the hours that are there are to facilitate the functions when we get them. We've a number of functions booked this year. With like a lot of hospitality businesses, we've suffered badly this last 15 months, and it's caused us a tremendous financial hardship in getting to this point. And now really we're looking to move on and facilitate a lot of cancelled weddings and functions in the coming year. We took the view in applying for the premises license rather than just keep going backwards and forwards with the TENS applications. So I think that's where we are, unless you've got any questions.
Okay, thank you very much. I can't see any of you on the screen because my broadband's starting to get a little bit poor. So I'm going to ask you to raise your hands if you've got a question, and then Duncan and Marianne, will you be able to let me know? Does the committee have any questions for the applicant at all?
Yeah, I'll have a question.
Yeah. Okay, do you want to go, Hugh?
Yeah, good evening, Mr. Hind. Just a quick question. On an average sort of function, how many people do you employ?
On an average function, it obviously we have the chef and the waiting staff, 14, 15 people there or thereabouts.
Yeah, so obviously your business is really important to the local economy, and locals having jobs then.
It is, but and this is really only the starting point. We need to regenerate the revenue. As I just said, we've had an horrendous 15 months, just like everybody has done in the hospitality sector. But we want to finish what we've started and complete the leisure facilities and move on to create what we believe will be a unique place for us and for Wyre.
Thank you.
Okay, I've got a question. It's regarding your fire risk assessment. What's your capacity inside?
The internal capacity,
yes,
is for a function is 200.
Right, 200. Okay. Right, thank you. Have you got any questions, Councillor Vincent, at all?
I had one, and it was the exact same as yours. It was about capacity of the venue, so that's been answered.
Brilliant. Okay. Duncan, Marianne, I don't think we've got any objectors, and no one else for anyone in support, have we still? Is that correct?
Duncan, you're on mute. But yeah, you are correct, Chair.
Okay, moving on then. Thank you for your submission. As applicant, you've got the opportunity for a closing address, anything you feel you've not covered, and you've got a maximum of 5 minutes if you so want to.
Sorry,
Okay.
Chair, can I just ask a couple of questions, please?
Yeah.
Just in relation, you've submitted a number of calculations. I've just wondered who had carried out the calculations. Is it a sound expert? Apologies if it's already been detailed in there.
Oh, sorry, we lost you then.
Yeah, we can't hear.
Sorry, can you hear me now? It was just in relation to the calculations on noise. Was it carried out by a noise expert, or have you just done that yourself?
These are, with today's Google and professional downloads, you can I've spent sort of like two weeks refreshing and understanding the transmission of sound. That's from a professional noise level calculator. I did a couple of them, but the reason I picked that one is because it tabulizes them so that you can easily see how the 6 dB loss as the distance doubles, and it gives you a nice tabular format to work to.
It's not been independently assessed by a noise expert, is what I'm taking from that, but you've done it using your best capabilities from Google.
Yeah,
Google information.
I do believe that that after looking at a number of things, that I do believe that it is accurate as well. Yeah.
And I've got a couple of other questions just in relation to 10 previous functions. What time was that till? Were they all the same time or different times?
They were all to the 1:30, 2 o'clock-ish time in the morning. Generally weddings these days take place at various times during the day, but a lot of people like to invite their friends to an evening function, and those go on to the various times rather than having different times. Whilst we've got the 1:30, 2 o'clock, it doesn't mean to say that we'll be open to those particular times. If the function people prefer a 1 o'clock closing time or 12:30, we've just covered the bases by having the 1:30 and 2 o'clock.
And was that with the capacity of 200 on all of those events?
It's a capacity, internal capacity without any further work on the hotel is indoors 200.
Sorry, do you have an outdoor capacity then as well, or?
because of outdoors, there's no external capacity on the outdoors, because there's no sort of effectively risk outdoors.
And my last question was in relation to, I think you've asked for recorded music inside at 7 AM, and I was just wondering, is there any reason why you wanted it to start at that particular time? Or
no, it's to cover when the
People are getting up for breakfast.
yeah, okay.
People do like something piped through into the breakfast room, don't they, sometimes? And that's about it. We're not going to have a disco at 7 o'clock in the morning. It was just general piped music.
I think that's it from me. Thank you, Chair.
No worries. Okay.
Sorry, Chair.
Sorry, yeah.
Sorry, just for the applicant's information, recorded music as regulated entertainment is where it's provided of itself to entertain. If they're talking about having background music in the restaurant to create an ambience, that wouldn't need authorization as recorded music.
Okay, thank you. Thanks for that clarification. So, thank you for your submission. You've got 5 minutes, maximum 5 minutes, if you wish to have a summary of your submission, really. Anything else you'd like to say at all?
No, I think I summed it up at the end of the other submission, really. The fact that we've done extensive research to back up the submission with the distances of the properties, the elevations and the noise calculations to obviously back up what we're looking to do. We obviously don't want to cause any nuisance to any of our neighbours. We want to get on with them. Generally, I look after the car parking and the outside functions, and so I think that whilst the Wyreside Leisure have put in for the application, we live locally in street just at the bottom of the from the hall, and I can't hear anything and been bothered by noise if I've gone home to look after our dog or whatever. So generally I'm looking after the outside and patrolling on all of these functions, and at the boundaries of the hall, I've never experienced a problem.
Okay, thank you. Well, there's no other relevant people who are here to make a final address, so we're just going to move on now. Everyone except the members of the subcommittee, the democratic service officers and the legal officer will now withdraw from the virtual hearing. This will allow for the determination to be undertaken in a private session. Thank you very much.
Okay, I'm stopping live streaming now.